The Rooster That Wouldn't Crow by Artie Knapp. The characters are Narrator, Toby the Rooster, Peter Harpole, Mrs. Harpole, Annie, a young girl, Ellie, a young girl, and Paula, a hen. It was the driest summer on record, and all the crops were wilting away. Every farmer in the region was reeling from their losses. Desperate to change his fortunes, Peter Harpole decided to try his luck with poultry farming. Peter didn't know much about chickens, but selling eggs would hopefully be a great source of income for him and his family, if he was successful at it. As the sun got closer to rising over the Harpole farm, Toby, the Harpole's new rooster, took his place atop a wooden fence next to the barn. It was Toby's first chance to showcase his ability to crow. Peter purchased Toby the night before from the McHenry farm down the road. The Harpoles were desperate for a good crower, because the other rooster on their farm had laryngitis. With the purchase of Toby, the Harpoles now had a total of 2 roosters and 12 hens. When the sun broke across the horizon, it triggered Toby's internal clock. He clinched the spurs of his feet against the wood and then proceeded to belt out the loudest moo you ever heard. Again and again, Toby proceeded to belt out moo, 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 some more. Toby's mooing shocked everyone on the farm, especially since the Harpoles didn't own a cow.
Ma, did you hear that?
Are you referring to the biscuits in your stomach? Or our new cow you forgot to tell me about, Peter?
I didn't buy any cow.
It's probably just some old cow that got loose from the McHenry farm.
Peter got up from the table and proceeded to walk out the front door of his home. His 2 daughters, Annie and Ellie, followed him. As Peter and his daughters approached the barn, Toby was still sitting atop the wooden fence.
Hello, Toby. Where's the cow at? Toby, where did that mooing come from?
Toby started to shake because he still had some moo left in him. He tried to keep it inside, but his body started to twitch as if he had been holding his breath for over 2 minutes. His shaking became uncontrollable. Unable to hold it in any longer, Toby let out the loudest moo ever heard in Brackford County. Annie and Ellie jumped up and down with excitement.
Daddy, we have a cow now. Yeah, listen to it moo, Daddy.
We don't have a cow. What we've got is a rooster with a weird sense of humor. Girls, go inside with your mother. I want to talk to Toby alone, please.
But Daddy, I want to play with him.
You heard me. Get along now.
As the girls walked away, disappointed, Peter looked Toby over and shook his head.
Well, let's take it from the top. What's up with the mooing, Toby?
Mr. Harpole, you seem really nice, and I hope that you'll have some patience with what I'm about to share with you.
All right, I'm listening.
I'll explain the mooing in a minute, but first there's something I have to tell you. Last night I was taken from my home, and nobody even asked me if I was okay with it. I had a life at the McHenry farm and was very happy there.
Toby, this is your home now. I paid for you. Mr. McHenry was your rightful owner, and he had every right to sell you if he wanted. Now, if it's a nice hen you're looking to settle down with, there are plenty available on this farm. In case you haven't already met her, Hazel's the cute brown and white colored hen over in the hen house. She's a little feisty, but I think you two would hit it off once you got to know her.
But I already care about somebody else, and I miss her terribly.
Toby, You're going to have to get used to living here. This is your home now. Forget that hen over at the McHenry farm and move on with your life.
She isn't a hen.
What do you mean?
My Edna. Oh, how I miss my dear Edna.
All right, take it easy. Edna's very important to you, I get it. That's nice. I am curious, though, Toby, if Edna isn't a hen, what is she?
She's a cow, Mr. Harpole. Edna is a big, beautiful cow.
You're joking, right?
No, sir, I'm not. That's why I've been mooing. I told Edna before I was taken away that I would moo as loud as I could for her. I want her to hear me so she knows I am thinking of her.
Toby, the first question I have for you is how did you fall in love with a cow? You're a rooster, for crying out loud.
Whoever said love was easy, Mr. Harpole?
Well, I'll give you that. But Toby, Mr. McHenry doesn't have any other roosters to sell. I asked him about that last night. He's one of the few farmers close by that even has roosters. Farmers in this region aren't looking to sell their roosters right now anyway because they're trying to breed them. If you haven't noticed, the crops aren't doing so well this year.
I realize that, Mr. Harpole, but what's the problem with me mooing anyway? Is it really that big a deal?
When it's coming from a rooster, yes, Toby, it is. Let's say word gets around town that my rooster moos instead of crows, the local grocers would probably quit buying from me because they think I have defective chickens.
This just isn't fair, Mr. Harpole.
Toby, I want you to think about everything we've discussed. Bright and early tomorrow morning, when you start to cackle, I'll be expecting to hear several loud crows out of you.
As Peter walked back toward the house, Toby pondered what he was going to do. Then Paula, one of the farm's hens, came over to talk with Toby.
Excuse me, I hope you don't mind, but I was listening to your conversation with Mr. Harpole, and, I'd like to offer you some friendly advice.
Sure, fire away. I could use it right now.
Well, first you got to understand Mr. Harpole's just trying to make an honest living to support his family, and what's so wrong with our place anyway? I think you'd really like it here if you gave it a chance.
Let me stop you right there. I completely understand and appreciate Mr. Harpole's situation. I really do. But what kind of a life are we living for ourselves if we just settle for whatever makes everyone else happy? This is a great farm, and everyone here has been wonderful so far. This isn't about where I live. I'm talking about how I live. I'm talking about being with the one I care about. Please don't take this personally.
It's a little hard not to, but you're wanting to be on a different farm is one thing, but wanting to get back to a cow, well, now every hen on this farm believes you feel you're too good for 'em.
That is absolutely not true. Haven't you ever been in love?
Yes, Toby, but he wasn't with a frog or a goat or a tiger. His name was Charlie, and he was, believe it or not, a rooster. Oh, look, I'm sorry. I didn't mean anything by that. I know this is tough, but you'll figure everything out. My name is Paula. If you ever need to talk, just come over to the coop and peck 3 times.
I will, Paula, and thanks for the advice.
Toby couldn't sleep a wink that night. He didn't know what he was going to do. He thought about running back to the McHenry farm, but was afraid that would get him and Edna both in trouble. The next morning, as the sun peeked over the horizon, Toby followed his heart and let out a very loud moo. About 10 seconds after doing so, Peter ran out of the house to confront Toby.
Toby, what are you doing? Did you not listen to a thing I said yesterday?
I did, Mr. Harpole, but I've got to do what I believe in.
Peter shook his head at Toby and went back into his house.
Where are you going so early, Peter?
I'm going to town, hopefully to find a buyer for this crazy rooster.
Daddy, please don't sell Toby. We love him.
I don't have a choice, Annie. I've got to make a living.
Mommy, please don't let Daddy sell Toby. Please, Mommy?
Peter stormed out of the house and then sped off in his truck. The next month was not the best of times at the Harpole farm. Peter had failed to find a buyer for Toby because word had already spread about his mooing rooster. Every morning Toby mooed with all his might. People were starting to flock to the Harpole farm like seagulls to see Toby moo his heart out. When Toby's unusual behavior was mentioned in the local paper, Peter had all he could stand and decided he would have to find a buyer for Toby out of region. He didn't care if it meant driving 3 states away. Peter wanted to be done with this troublesome bird once and for all. One evening, during supper, Peter mentioned his intentions to sell Toby out of state. It didn't sit well with his daughters.
Daddy, I'm begging you. Can we please keep Toby?
Annie, we've already talked about this. We can no longer have this rooster causing so much disruption in our lives.
He doesn't cause me disruptions, Daddy.
Peter looked at his daughters' sad faces, and it tore him up inside. He got up from the table and went outside to take a walk. As Ellie was being consoled by her mother, Annie became excited and blurted out,
I have an idea, Mommy. I have an idea how we can save Toby.
Well, what is it?
Toby wants to be with Edna more than anything, right?
Yes, I'm listening.
Well, why can't Toby and Edna be together at the petting zoo in Belvar?
Mrs. Harpole was sold on Annie's idea the moment she suggested it and was anxious to share it with Peter upon his return. Mrs. Harpole believed in her heart this could be the solution to their ever-growing dilemma. And it was. After a long sit-down talk with both Peter and Mr. McHenry, the Belvar Petting Zoo agreed to take on Toby and Edna as pets. Most of the money generated to see this unusual couple would go to the petting zoo, and the rest would be split equally between Peter and Mr. McHenry. In no time at all, Peter had made more money from the zoo than he would have with 20 roosters on his farm. As for Toby and Edna, well, they're still together to this day. They couldn't be happier. People who see them now don't find it that odd anymore. But they do have the strangest looking kids you ever did see.